All right, let's get started. I see some names in here that I recognize, so that's pretty cool. All right, my name is Niccole Minka. I'm Managing Director of ggLocators. Just to confirm, everyone can see my screen that says recruiting in AR/VR. Perfect. All right, so I'm Managing Director of ggLocators. We are a third-party contract and direct hire search firm that specializes specifically in the AR/VR gaming and esports space. I will touch base on that a little bit more as we go into this, but I see how many attendees we have here, and I'm curious, so to make sure that I'm speaking to the right audience, am I talking to a group that is mostly people looking to hire, people looking to be hired, and you're trying to get a job in the space, or is it a mix? I'm happy to talk both ways, but just want to get an idea of who I'm speaking with. So, all right, mix, job, hiring on the biz dev side, both exploring opportunities. Okay, so I will cover both bases here based on those responses. So on to my next slide, what we're going to cover is who ggLocators is, what we do, some current market trends, how we work with candidates, how we work with clients, and any questions that you might have at the end. So as I said, I'm the Managing Director of ggLocators. I started it back in 2019 with a focus on esports, actually. We realized there wasn't a lot of recruiting agencies that focused not on the players, but on the actual jobs in the esports space. And quickly learned in 2019 that maybe they weren't ready for third-party agencies. It's getting to that point now, which is very, very exciting because we've built up our talent network of esports professionals, but we jumped pretty heavy into game dev and AR/VR, working with AAA and indie studios all across the United States, and helping them build out teams, whether they were startups looking to make their first hires and needed some consultation and how do we go about doing this and what kind of questions should we ask to find the right people, and partnering with us to help build up those teams. And then working with well-established AAA studios or large corporations that are starting to integrate AR and VR into either had it established in their products or we're starting to incorporate it. So we offer, like I said, direct hire. So anyone that is a full-time employee, contract services, if somebody needs somebody for a 3-month, 6-month, 1-year contract or contract to hire, we offer SOW, more consultative services, and then we offer RPO or an embedded recruiter where we actually have one of the ggLocators team members sitting on a team with a company to help them just focus on their 5 to 7 jobs that they're looking to fill and like working as an extension of their talent acquisition team. So our focus, as I mentioned, we have 3 verticals: gaming, so working with AAA and indie studios, corporate gamification, whether that is a company like Wayfair that's starting to do AR/VR products into their incorporated, so you can see the couch in your living room sort of thing. AR/VR companies that are working on headgear, like the hardware, whether they're creating VR games, whether they're creating VR applications, whether they're doing live stream virtual concerts, doing augmented reality, or if there's a blended mix. I mean, I haven't heard, there's so many things in the space that I feel like I learned something new that AR and VR can do every single day. And then, like I said, esports was where we got our start, so esports as well. So let's see. Jobs that are going to be enhanced by AR and VR, starting in 2019, which is when we got our start, all the way through 2030. So as you can see, exponential growth in this industry for hiring purposes. And my next slide shows some of the ways that that's going to be implemented. So use of gamification within games. It's not only going to be you're playing The Walking Dead in a headset and you're playing Beat Saber. It's going to be utilized for onboarding practices or the hiring phase. So maybe you're not actually wearing a headset, but you might be doing a virtual or augmented reality version of where you have to see if you can do sales. Maybe they're going to stick you in a situation where you're trying to sell a car and you need to walk through, instead of taking a personality test, you're actually playing a game to see if your sales skills match what they're looking for personality wise and wording wise and everything that's needed to make it to that next step of the interview phase. People are also starting to do virtual workplace tours so you can see the office, especially if you're going to relocate once things go back to normal. What does the office look like? And what's my setup? What's cool about this company? And they'll start to incorporate that as more of a selling point. Training and development. So maybe you make it through the hiring process and you need to, I'm going to stick with the car analogy. I think it's pretty easy to think of putting a headset on and walking someone through the sales process. So maybe how to interact with an AI that you're trying to sell and pitch a car to. And like, how do you deal with any objections that they're coming up? And the AI will be able to speak to that, and you'll be in the setting and you'll be able to interact and see if you're scoring well or not. Or I've also seen applications where people have to be able to sort things coming down a production line really fast and put the headset on and see how quickly and accurately they're able to sort the boxes and make sure that they're going in the correct places, or if there's a hazardous material that they're pulling a lever and things like that. So a lot of different applications and uses. And then onboarding as well. So getting these people hired and trained up and how it's going to be implemented in that part of the process. Top jobs that I've seen come up, engineers. I actually just grouped that into one because that is the bulk of what I'm seeing hiring. And then I saw somebody say business development too. That's another large portion of what we're seeing. So engineers, anything, gameplay, graphics, tools, depending on the engine that's being used, strong C++, strong C#. There's also going to be a huge need for AR/VR maintenance and support and QA. So are the headsets working? Are the programs that you've implemented to train those salespeople to do the things that they need to do working appropriately? Product managers, project managers, anyone that's going to be saying, hey, look at what our product can do for you and your company, and pitching that kind of falls into business development too, depending on how people label things. But look at what our product can do and how you can utilize it for your company to help reduce turnover, speed up training, and just be ahead of the game when it comes to being an innovative company. Accounting and finance, I think that always just comes across the board as people need to handle stuff on the back end. XR researchers, what sort of things do people want to see out in the industry and how can we make it happen, and prototyping. And then marketing, sales, and distribution can also kind of be lumped into the business development, project management that I just mentioned. But how can we get it out there? How can we sell it to both B2B and B2C clients? All right, so ggLocators, a little bit back to what we do. Like I said, we offer a couple different services, whether that's the embedded recruiter or RPO, contract, direct hire. We offer full cycle solutions, going out, finding the people that have these skill sets, whether that's on LinkedIn, ArtStation, Dice, Behance, GitHub. We're looking through, we're going to networking events virtually right now, but soon we'll be back on college campuses, and we will be at GDC and everywhere that we can to be networking in this space, so that you guys can focus on hiring people for your team and making the products that you want to make. And we will work the back end of all the networking and make sure we've got that portion covered. We send out talent analytics to companies and say, hey, this is what we're seeing. This is the pricing models. This is what these kind of people cost. If they're coming from XYZ company, or if they're living in California and they're moving to Texas, we are talking to these people all day, every day. So that's where our expertise comes in. And then once we know what the company is looking for, we will start evaluating those candidates based on those requirements. So if we'll work with the clients to help find and check a lot of the boxes that we're looking for, but we'll also work with the candidates and say, hey, this is the job. This is where you might be a little bit shy in terms of experience. So is that something that we can work around for this client right now and your other skills make up for it? Or is that something that maybe you need to go on Unreal Engine and start playing around and do some of their free online courses and some projects of your own, so that the next time that they're hiring for something like this, then you have that skill set already. Then we will partner with the client to ensure that we are managing the whole timeline, the scheduling, handling feedback, handling reference checks, any kind of assessments or tests that they might have to give out to candidates, and we'll just manage the process on both sides. Something that I will throw out here right now is everything is moving so fast. So one of the things that we help consult on is being able to interview the right amount of people in the right amount of time so that you feel like you're making the right selection, but also moving quickly, because people have multiple job opportunities right now. It's just really, really hot in the market right now. Our candidates are flying like crazy and getting multiple offers. So we help manage that on both sides with the candidate and the client, and coach them through how do we handle this, and how do we make sure that you're in the best opportunity for you to make this hire and for you to get this job, and help just, match make and walk through the process. This slide is a little overwhelming, but it's like I said, everywhere that we touch on, for finding candidates, for finding that market intelligence, in addition to just us being on the phone talking to people in the space all day, every day. And then this is the workflow that we typically go through. And I think that this one applies both if you're hiring and if you are our candidate. There's an open role that's identified, and we will have an intake call with the person that's making the hiring. We'll find out exactly what they're looking for. We will go through the sourcing process, which goes back to that last page of looking on ArtStation and GitHub and LinkedIn for the right candidate in our own database too, because we have good pipelines of these folks already. So connecting and trying to make sure that we've got the right candidate match. Then we screen them, ask any questions that the client might have a particular interest in. Have you worked on an XR product particularly for military simulation? Have you worked on a program that's more like Snapchat? And so we'll be able to look at the portfolios and figure that out, but we'll also dive a lot deeper when we're talking to the candidates to figure out exactly who they are, what they've done, and how they fit in with that company and that culture. Then, like I said, candidate assessments, that's parts if we have to send them like a C++ test to test out their skills before they move into a whiteboarding session. We'll walk through candidate interviews. We like to talk to both parties. We will make sure that the candidate has the LinkedIn information of the hiring manager that they're talking to. They understand the company that they're interviewing for, because they might have 5 interviews. So which company is this? Why am I interested in them? What makes them cool? Who am I talking to? They'll have all that information. And then the client will have their resume, their LinkedIn profile, why I think that they're a good fit for the job, or one of my teammates. And after those interviews, we'll walk through on both sides and say, okay, to the hiring manager, what did you like? What did you want to see more of? To the candidate, what did you like? What do you want to see more of? And make sure compensation aligns, because you never want to get through 5 rounds of interviews and then find out that there's a perfect person, but we can't afford them. So back to the drawing board. Then we handle reference checks and any kind of background check, drug screening, whatever is required by the client. Making sure that we're asking and working with the client, are there any specific things that you want us to ask in our reference checks, find out a little bit more information about. With the offer process, we're handling salary negotiations on both sides. So that goes back to the beginning where we're saying, hey, these are the market trends. These are what people are worth. This is for this number of years and this level of experience. This is where the market's at, trying to help you find someone within that range. And then when we get through the offer process, we've already hit that multiple times to make sure that it works for both the candidate and the client. So right when it gets to the offer process, both parties have already known the entire time what the breakdown is going to be. Sometimes things change because, like I said, sometimes there's multiple offers. But we just help navigate through that whole process, just like if you were buying a house, making sure that everything is itemized and you know what you're getting. And then we have a refund if anything falls off one way or another. And then through the onboarding process, we just check in with them. Hey, did you get everything that you need? On both sides, you have the candidates ready to start. They've got their computers, everything's been shipped. They have all the technology, everything's good to go. Do you need anything from us? And then checking in with the candidate on their first day, their first week, their first month, just making sure everything's still moving smoothly, and helping navigate anything that might arise in that time frame with the client, and working through that just to make sure that the whole process is as smooth as possible and both sides are happy and you have a long-term hire or contractor on board. So here's some of our success stories. They range across a wide variety of clients. This isn't all of them. I just put together some highlights. We've done chief product officers, game designers, engineers, VP of AR and innovation, social media management. So depending on what your needs are, as long as it's in games, AR, VR, or esports, we have done it. We just know the software and the skills and everything that's required in the back end. So that's where we've made our niche. So all right. Well, that popped out. So I'll just stop sharing my screen and let you guys see my face and answer some questions. I ran through that really fast. I talk really fast. I'm working on it personally, but I'm going to go through and read some of these questions that we have on here. So feel free to add more as we go. I believe the first question was, to what degree do your clients require candidates to have existing AR and VR professional experience for roles other than developers and support teams? For example, seems like most product managers from other tech companies could transition easily into these roles. So depends on the client, which is something that we help work through. I have some clients that have hard requirements of, we absolutely need somebody who has come doing the same type of work from Facebook or from just any AR, VR. They want somebody that specifically come from Snapchat. And for those clients, it's normally because they themselves have a passion, or they've worked on things personally and they have an idea and a vision for where they want it to go, but they need to know how to make that applicable the same way that a Snapchat or Facebook has been able to do it themselves. So with those clients, it can be a hard requirement. With other companies, they can be a lot more flexible. They can just say, hey, it's not so much about the AR, VR experience. I need somebody that's really, really strong in sales, that's going to take the product and be able to get it in front of anyone and speak to anyone, whether they are from this industry or they are not from this industry and they have no idea what they're looking at. So with those types of positions, it's a lot easier to say, okay, here's somebody from outside of the AR, VR industry that's interested. Now, how do we just transition them to start doing pitches and things like that for companies across the board? So I know that doesn't totally help. It just depends. And that's something that you can kind of pick up from a job description. Or if you're working with somebody like me and they're one of our clients, we can tell you, like, these are the requirements that they have on the job posting, but they need somebody that can definitely do the first three. The second three, less important. If there's ever anything like that where somebody wants some help from me, I'm always happy to look at a job description and look at a resume and say, you know what, we work with that client. Let me talk to them and see if that's something that we can get you in front of and get you those answers. Or I can kind of read it a little bit myself and just be like, you know what, based on what I'm seeing, looking at tons of job descriptions and resumes all day, I think that they might need X, Y, and Z. So my email, I'll chat that later, but I'm always happy to help one way or another if someone has questions like that. And then, is the market hot in terms of engineering and content creation side only, or in terms of product management and marketing sales. It's hotter in engineering. Just because the market's tighter. Like, there are not enough engineers right now with the skill levels and years of experience that people need to fill all the jobs that are currently open and about to be open. So in that sense, yes, those ones are normally higher priority. But that doesn't mean that product management and sales is less. Once they have the product built by the engineers that they found, they need people to go out and sell it and make sure that they're getting the return on investment. So it's just as important. There are just like slightly less jobs out there, but they're starting to ramp up. So I don't see it being slow. Do you work with international candidates, and is the process different for them? So with international candidates, the process is a little bit different. That comes down to payroll for us. So if it's a contractor, depending on where somebody is, we're not normally able to do a contract situation for someone that's international. However, if it's direct hire and our client that we're working with is able to do that payroll, then we will be able to work with international candidates. That is something personally that we're growing towards. But right now, for most of what we do, it's in the United States or Canada. How does employment look for people new in the field or with not a lot of experience? So depends on the job. So if I have a role for a product manager that is going to be doing a lot of outreach and lead generation, a lot of times I can find somebody more entry level that's willing to send a lot of emails, make a lot of cold calls. When it comes to programming, if they're fresh out of school, it really comes down to how strong is your programming capabilities, what projects have you worked on, what projects have you worked on beyond school to show that you've gone above and beyond. And then internships, which I know can also be kind of hard to come by, but it's possible to jump into the industry. It just depends on which roles you're looking to get into, and what your skill level is and how it can transition. Again, I'm happy to talk about that a little bit more in depth, depending on what skill sets you have and relay how it can be easiest to get in with those certain skills. Does your company deal with learning experience designers for training in XR? So I have a client that does exactly that out in New York. They don't have any design roles open at the moment. It is engineering, but they're continuing to grow, and we're continuing to work with more and more companies that do learning experience. So as we grow and get more clients, and we work with candidates who do that and have placed them with some of our existing folks, trying hard not to just throw client names out there. I don't like being that person. So, but with your question about do we work in that space of learning experience designers and training? Yes, 100%. And then what roles and demand do you see for people who focus on consumer research, how consumers utilize and benefit from AR and XR? So with that, they haven't needed our help particularly yet to staff. I haven't staffed a role like that yet. However, it's something that every single client that we work with is interested in. And there's also companies that I call on that haven't started utilizing AR and VR yet that want to know that information. So have they needed third-party help to find it yet? No. Is it out there, and is it going to be something in the near future? 100%. So that one comes more. I've seen more roles, except for like the big name companies, like Microsoft and Facebook, and I've seen more companies just networking with folks for that, to find out the information. But there's people who will hire consultants when they don't know exactly what they need to do to make sure that they can get the products that they need. And then eventually, a lot of times those people will help them figure out if they're going to bring things in-house and be able to do it themselves, or if they're going to continue to need to outsource. So I've seen that role a lot more in the consulting capacity. Which skills, which might not be obvious, are specifically applicable to the esports sector? So I don't want to touch on this one too long, just because we are in the AR/VR space. But which skills are applicable to esports? That I keep saying it depends on the role, but it really does. Esports, we've seen a lot of coaches. We've seen a lot of tournament organizers, marketing, sales, brand. There have been some hardware-focused roles in esports. I think that's kind of where I'm going to drop it on that one. But if Evan, if you have any other questions on that, you can shoot me an email. We can touch base specifically on esports. What do VR companies look for in junior developer positions? Is it mostly examining their portfolio, or are you looking for them to be some sort of AR/VR educational program? So there are a lot of school programs that offer fantastic training and development for people in this space. They're starting to, some have been around for years, DigiPen, and AIE, I know, does a lot of work there, Full Sail. So there's a lot of schools that utilize, that have these training programs for students. Even then, even if somebody has gone to college for it, it's very, very important for those students to not only do the projects that they're doing in school, but to go above and beyond and work on their own projects, or try and do some freelance work to gain more experience, take on part-time contracts, which are definitely out there, to help elevate their professional work experience. That being said, I know plenty of developers that haven't gotten a college education. They're just incredible programmers. So they understand how to make anything happen that they need to make happen. And their portfolios are strong. They keep the best work on there, whether it's their GitHub or if they're actually creating a program and featuring it on their site. It's their best work. They explain very well what they have done to make it work, what their part of the process was, if they were working with designers or artists, or did they handle the whole thing? It's very, very detailed. So you could say, okay, I understand what that person did to make that happen. Because sometimes for a junior developer, you are applying to a company where people that are looking at it have been doing this for 12 years, 15 years, and have grown with the evolution of AR and VR. So they understand it really, really well. So when they look at a portfolio, it can be very, very high critiques. If you're looking at a company that maybe doesn't totally understand AR, VR at the moment, they just want to figure out how they can incorporate it and add it as a cool portion of their sales. Like, if I remember when they started doing like the engagement ring things, and you could like see the ring on your hand and help shop that way. Those sorts of developers, I know more junior folks had gone in that way and gotten that type of experience before they jumped up to working directly on Oculus or Vive or something like that. So it depends on how you come at it, and it depends on how strong you're able to prove that your skills are. The market is nuts right now. How is remote work shaping up in the current job market? So many more things are being remote. I think it's causing an interesting shift that we're not done seeing yet. we're starting to see things go back a little bit to normal. Some companies have said, hey, we can be fully remote. We're going to get rid of our office and just keep everybody remote. And we're totally fine with that. Other companies miss the collaboration, seeing people face to face. So they're bringing people in. It's creating a huge shift where everyone now has all of these options and they can say, oh, well, the company that I'm working with doesn't align with what I want. I'm going to stay remote and not go back on site and go work for this other company. Or vice versa. Sometimes they don't want to stay remote. They want to work on site. So they'll move and work with a company where they can be on site. There's just a lot of flip-flopping around right now. And compensation-wise, it's getting interesting too, because some companies from San Francisco that were able to pay a crazy amount to because the cost of living was so high there, is now offering that kind of pay to people that sit in Nebraska. And then there's companies in Austin where they've been doing this for years and now they're competing with that sort of thing too. So are they able to level up their compensation, or are they just going to have to get creative with what they're able to offer? So that's been going on for the last year since all of this happened. But I think now that things are starting to go back to normal, we're going to see another shift again as it starts to balance out. So would you recommend for non-programmer school leavers what would you recommend for non-programmer school leavers who may want to get into XR? So if you're not in school for it, it depends on what you want to do. If you want to be a programmer or you want to do design, Unity and Unreal both have tons of free programs. So much of what you can learn about online. So if that's the route that you want to go, check those out. There's also if you're leaning more art focused, there is, oh my goodness, why can't I remember the name off the top of my head? But there's different coaching programs that can help you get your portfolio set up exactly how you need to. Then there are, so free programs, networking. So network with people who have done what you want to do and how did they get into it, especially if they didn't go to school for it. Were they just tinkering around with stuff and made it work? How did they evolve their skills? And then if it's not programming, if it's not something technical, then there's a lot more opportunities to get into it. I mean, I didn't necessarily see myself, AR/VR is probably one of my favorite verticals that we work with, but I didn't necessarily see myself in this space 5-10 years ago recruiting specifically for this. I came from IT and sports, hence the esports thing. But it's so cool to see all the things that it's done. So there's recruiting opportunities. There are sales opportunities, business development opportunities, social media marketing. There's tons of other avenues in the XR space that could still be applicable. Finance, even, like I said on that top job slide, finance is an option as well. So it's more about utilizing the skills that you have and figuring out where it can be applicable in the space. What roles do you have for someone with experience in management consulting? So with consulting, we often work with companies who are looking to build out teams, or there's a product timeline that they need handled, budgets that they need handled. And if that's a need that they're looking to fill, or if I hear it because they're trying to hire a couple different things, but the process isn't moving super slow, I'll recommend, hey, maybe we bring in a consultant to help you figure out your organizational headcount, where you need to put the priorities. And that's if it's like hiring related, or we might do management consultant if there's like a business plan that they need assistance on. Have you had any clients who are specifically looking for 360-degree live action VR content creation? If so, then what did the clients expect the candidates to be like? So yes, to the first part of the question. We had a job like that last year. Expecting the candidates to be like, that is open-ended for me. I think you're speaking of requirements for the skill sets, and it depends on the engine. So, and how you're able to port everything into it. And there's a lot of soft skills that go along with it too, which when you say what the candidates expect to be like, I want to touch base on that portion as well. So Kevin, if you want, like I said, I'm going to shoot my email at the bottom. We can connect specifically about that one offline so that I can be very specific with you and actually pull up our job description and some of the notes from last year. I'm a little fuzzy on it because it's been a minute, but, and just because that one's very specific, we can take that one offline. You're welcome, everyone. I appreciate all the thanks that I'm getting in here. How can someone with a degree in psychology and an MBA leverage that education to get into the field of XR? So that is a awesome combination to make your way into XR as it pertains to, you got to find the right product, because certain companies, it depends on what you want to make in XR. If you want to do something with psychology and have a program where maybe there's an interview process happening, or a difficult, I'm trying to think, I saw one program that did this, but it was a difficult situation with 2 employees. So they actually created a program where people could put the headset on and work through how to communicate effectively with those other employees. So psychology plays a huge part in that, because the AI isn't AI until you start to feed it things to look for so that it can respond appropriately in the way that a person would react. So that could be an avenue that you go down, where it's helping create those processes. Psychology is also huge. I've also seen XR used for handling autism, like coaching and how they can interact in certain situations. And yeah, I think there's a lot of avenues that psychology could be utilized in that regard. So again, happy to connect offline and give more information. All right, so here is my email, everyone. Send that out. Yeah, and feel free to let me know if you have any questions on anything. I'm also on LinkedIn, so you can connect with me there. And then just make sure that you're checking out our job boards, because we will post all of our new jobs that we are currently actively working on, and can give you some additional information about those clients. Are there any other questions that anyone has for me while we are live? I think we are good then. So in that case, and I know we ran a couple minutes over, I will hop off and wish you all a fantastic day. Thank you so much. Bye.